Hey everybody, welcome to No Plan, No Problem, a weekly D&D advice podcast where two dungeon masters take a mythical quest to find actionable tips for you to use in your next game. I'm your dungeon master, Anto.
And I am in love, Matthew Perkins.
You can find my stuff across the internet at icarus-games.co.uk.
And you can find my stuff over at matthewperkins.net. Today, we are talking about a certain L word. That's right, the L word, love.
Aww.
We're talking about love because it's Valentine's Day soon.
Yay.
So this episode is coming out on like the 10th or something, and in like 4 days. And this is your reminder, everybody, you need to buy a gift for Valentine's Day. It's coming up. Buy a gift. So Valentine's Day is all about love. It's a very special holiday in a lot of people's hearts and minds, and it's one of like the big four, the big five holidays. And we figured there's probably going to be a lot of D&D stuff happening with Valentine's Day. Valentine's one-shots, Valentine's classes, Valentine's themes in your adventures. And today we want to cover all of them by getting 3 lovely tips. So Anto, who's going to help us on our quest for the first tip?
The first intrepid adventurer helping us on our quest for a tip is Farning10 from r/Dungeons and Dragons over on Reddit. And they say, I'm the DM for a relatively new group. We usually play on Friday nights, but since no one has any plans on Valentine's Day, classic D&D, we're going to play that night. I was wondering if you guys have any suggestions for something cool and Valentine's Day themed that I could do.
Okay, this is the classic holiday move to do a D&D one-shot based on the theme of the holiday, Valentine's.
Doing it last minute as well. Classic Dungeon Master.
That's it. Hey, it's Valentine's Day right now, and we're playing D&D. What are we doing? All the players are staring at me at this moment. Please type your response very quickly. Okay, well, so we've got to make a Valentine's one-shot. This will be fun. So themes of Valentine's Day. I'm gonna rattle off the symbols and themes of Valentine's Day, and you stop me when you latch onto something.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Love hearts, Cupid, arrows, cherubs, heartbreak, chocolate, dates. Stop me anytime.
Cupid,
roses.
Possibly. I'm thinking.
Oh, okay.
Because
we already went past that. That was a few. Already said that a little while. We can go back to Cupid. Fine. Rewind it to Cupid, please.
My way of thinking is if you're going to do a holiday themed one shot, you've got kind of 2 avenues you go. You play into type or you play against type. You play into the expectations that people have around the themes of the holiday, or you go against them. And I think Cupid is a good way to do either of those things.
Yeah. That's actually a really good way to think about it. Because when I think about Christmas one-shots, typically people play against type. They go, Santa's actually evil and they've got to kill him. Or like, we're all Grinches and we're trying to ruin Christmas or something like that, right? But for Valentine's Day, it's kind of like one of the lesser holidays.
Yeah.
I'm playing around with Cupid, playing into type. Cupid is a little cherub kind of baby demon friend who shoots arrows and makes people fall in love. That's a pretty disruptive energy to shoot out there into the world.
And what I'm thinking is some kind of situation in which there is maybe a royal planned marriage or some kind of royal engagement, and Cupid is kind of an ineffective little cheruby fae, obviously a fae creature. And instead of shooting their arrow at the 2 people that they were supposed to, they've accidentally shot their arrow into the wrong person, and they've set up a situation where there's going to be a royal wedding, but one of the parties is madly in love with a third party, and the party and the adventurers have got to go on some kind of hijinks to rectify Cupid's mistake.
That's really fun, and I would make the party be the third party, or like maybe the party's horse or something.
Oh my god, yes, one of the party members is the third party. That would immediately buy them into the premise.
Oh my god, this bloody prince has been following me around. No, I don't want your castle. No, stop throwing rose petals at me. Stop it. Jesus, stop it. I really like that idea. I think that's kind of fun. There is one moment that I would definitely want in that session, though, providing you have a party that can do this kind of thing respectfully without getting creepy, is I would have at one point one of the party members shot with Cupid's arrows, and I would say to that player, I describe the love overwhelming. It's like, okay, you feel your fingers go numb, your toes go numb, and like this pit in your stomach, like this ice that's always been there that you've never even noticed, it melts, and you open your eyes, and the first thing you see, you fall instantly in love with. And then I would ask the player, what do you see?
Yes.
And let the player kind of choose what it's like. So they might choose, I see like a random person, or I see another party member, or I see a horse.
Yeah.
I think it would be really fun.
Yeah, what I like most about that is that you're getting the hijinks associated with that premise, but you're putting it in control of the player, giving the player that kind of final control. You go 90% as the DM, but you put that last 10% in their control, and it means that they are in charge of what they're comfortable with. I really like that.
Does the party have to kill Cupid to stop this curse?
Ideally, no.
Like, do they have to go fly swat this thing?
No, I like the idea that they're working with Cupid, and that Cupid is like a bumbling sidekick with them on this like adventure. The Cupid shot the arrow into one of the party, and the prince has now fallen madly in love with them, and the entire fate of the kingdoms is at threat. And after they've escaped from the advances of the prince from the first time, Cupid like kicks down the door with his little chubby legs, and he's like, "You need to help me."
Yeah. Something has gone wrong.
And
come with me, there's no time.
I also really like playing against type that is, in terms of proportions and like body, he'd be like a cheruby baby.
He'd be a baby,
but have like a deep, burly voice and a beard and maybe like a tattoo, as well as being like a baby body.
Yeah, a tattoo of like the classic tattoo of like the heart with the arrow in it.
Yeah.
It's like, I designed this myself. It's pretty cool.
And like flexing it on his muscles.
Can I twist this? Because there is another trope that you can do with holiday adventures that I just remembered. You could do the thing where it's like, oh, Cupid's broken his ankle.
Yeah.
Oh no, he's not going to make it to the love arrow shooting day, which is Valentine's Day. Well, I guess the party's going to have to take his place, and so the party are transformed into like they can all fly now.
Yeah.
They're all ethereal, and they can all shoot arrows and to make love things, and you make them make Valentine's Day work, and there's like this famed romance. Oh, dude, you could do a rom-com.
Yeah. Oh, rom-com would be funny.
You could do a rom-com.
There's a surprising amount of distance that you can get out of Valentine's Day, much more than I initially gave Valentine's credit for. Yeah.
This is really good. What rom-com would you... Because I don't think I would want to do the one with Hugh Grant. I say the one with Hugh Grant.
Yeah, the one with Hugh Grant.
Any of the ones. Maybe Notting Hill. I might do Notting Hill. I think maybe... Is Sliding Doors a rom-com? I'd want to do a Sliding Doors.
I would go against what you have said, and I would lean into Hugh Grant, and I would choose music and lyrics with Hugh Grant and Drew Barrymore. I don't know how it would work, but that's where I would go. Washed Up Bard, Hugh Grant, explicitly Hugh Grant as well. The bard would be called Hugh Grant.
That's funny. I actually love the idea of having a character named Hugh Grant and never addressing it.
Yeah.
Let's cancel the podcast real quick. What's your favourite rom-com? Mine's Bridget Jones's Diary.
Music and lyrics with Hugh Grant and Drew Barrymore.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool. We got to find a tip.
I think that if I were to suggest a tip, it would be...
And you are.
And I am. That is the purpose of this entire production. Welcome, dear listener, if this is your first time. So my tip would be decide whether or not you want to play into the themes of the holiday that you're making an adventure for, or whether you want to subvert the themes of the holiday that you're making an adventure for.
Anto, brilliant tip. Love it. Hey, should we roll for sponsorship?
Let's do this. This week's episode is sponsored by Matthew Perkins. Woo! If you didn't know, Matt has a YouTube channel over there on the YouTube platform where he talks about all things D&D. He's got a brilliant series where he talks about the Lost Mines of Phandelver. That's the starter set, the place to start, as it were. And he does really good videos, gives you alternate takes on how to run the adventures, different perspectives, changes things, makes things better. It's all good stuff, and you should absolutely go and check out Matthew Perkins.
You think he says that out of the kindness of his heart, but he made me pay through that. He made me pay through the nose for that. Hey, you can also support us, No Plan, No Problem, on a bunch of social media platforms, or you can subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast platform. If you're following on iTunes, don't forget to give us those 5-star reviews. Oh man, we love it. Every time you give us a 5-star review, I actually get an extra life, and it makes me live another century longer. So please keep them coming. We also have a Patreon. Appreciate your support. Let's get back to it.
So, Matt, we need to find a second tip here. So you take us on this journey, lead us on this adventure to find this second tip.
Valentine's Day. I stole this song from Christmas and it can suck my dick. I'm sorry, I didn't know what I was doing. So this is going to be Stuff to Steal. We're going to rob that Valentine's Day, and we're going to look at the actual myth, the actual legend, the origin of Valentine's Day. So I'm going to read it to you. It's not very long. This is the legend of Saint Valentine's. The day gets its name from a famous saint, but there are several stories about who he was. The popular belief is that Saint Valentine was a priest from Rome in the 3rd century. Emperor Claudius II had banned marriage because he thought married men were bad soldiers. Valentine felt this was unfair, so he broke the rules and arranged marriages in secret. When Claudius found out, Valentine was thrown in jail and sentenced to death. There, he fell in love with the jailer's daughter, and when he was taken to be killed on the 14th of February, he sent her a love letter that said, "From your Valentines." Isn't that nice?
That is
nice.
That is nice. Also surprisingly dark. I don't know why. I should have expected the origins to be surprisingly dark.
Yeah, it's pretty dark. But here's the thing. Any story about history is super dark.
Yeah.
And anything that involves, like, the church and the king, you know that story's going to have heads.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not attached to bodies.
They're going to be rolling.
So I figured we got to find something that we can use and import from this story into D&D. And I don't necessarily want to bring, like, another campaign or session idea out of this, because we just did our holiday theme tip before. Did anything jump out to you about that? Like, what do you want to latch onto, do you think?
The thing that jumped out at me is, how did he fall in love with the jailer's daughter? Is she just hanging around the jail? Just spending her days reclining in the jail?
Oh, man. Okay, I am telling stories about Valentine's. Let's do this again. Tip 2, same as the first, baby. So the jailer's daughter was actually a ghost of someone that was executed.
Oh.
Is that kind of cool? This ghost kind of like feeds off, like it falls in love, makes people fall in love with it, like a ghostly siren of the jail. Is that cool?
I think that could definitely be cool. I think that's unexpected. That's definitely playing against the expected themes of the holiday. That's cool.
But you know what really jumped out at me, though, was the fact that the king goes, "I'm banning marriages because I think it makes soldiers, like, less good." Like, that is wild.
Yeah.
What a cool thing to do.
It's that whole Jedi no attachment deal, isn't it? You can't be as effective and as controlled if you have regular human emotions for someone else.
But maybe that's like a story that we could tell as well. Like the fact that this king is outlawing love. That's like, it's kind of cheesy, but also kind of tragic.
I think that the idea of kind of soldiers being banned from marriage and that kind of prohibition on love could definitely be a backdrop as part of the culture of your world. And you could find some interesting ways to incorporate that into your game through the interactions that your players have with different soldiers. And I think that there are ways that you could kind of play with the players' expectations as well. Because if you say to the players that these two soldiers, without describing them, can't get married, the players are going to form a level of assumption about that, and then you let them know that it's because the king or the general has outlawed marriage. That gives them that kind of reveal that isn't what they might have been expecting.
That's really fun, and I really like that kind of direction, because what you're saying is kind of use this cool story that you might want to even, your instinct might be to say, I want to resolve this in my D&D game. But you're kind of suggesting, no, hold back and instead use this plot point that you would normally want resolved, use it as a world-building feature, as a backdrop, and it's going to add a little bit more dimension. It kind of reminds me of like the Game of Thrones, the Unsullied, which is like an army of eunuchs, right? And they're elite soldiers because they have no distractions, which makes a lot of weird assumptions about genitals and the way they inform your combat ability. But it's still a little bit comparable, right?
Yeah. I think that what I think is a useful takeaway from this, a tip as it may be, is that you can use a holiday one-shot to build the world around your campaign, and it can have impacts and lasting effects outside of a one-shot. So in this example, in our I almost said Halloween then. In our Valentine's themed adventure, we introduced the concept that there's a ban on soldiers being married. If we don't resolve that in a single session, if we don't resolve that in our one shot, then that then becomes part of our world building. And the next time the players encounter soldiers, they're going to know that these soldiers can't be married regardless of how they feel.
That's a really good tip. Okay. Anto, the adventurer helping us on the quest for our third tip is named Sneaky Links from RD&D. And Sneaky Link says, I'm trying to get my wife into trying out D&D. She's always said she's not creative enough to be in a group, and she always looks uncomfortable when I suggest a trial run. I have a feeling she will like it once she tries it. How do you feel about this? How do you get your spouse into playing D&D if they seem reluctant?
I think that's a real good question. Well done, Sneaky Links. I think there are a couple ways that you can approach this. The first way I would try would be kind of a baby steps approach and play a game that isn't D&D, that isn't necessarily a role-playing game, but that brings in some of the elements from a role-playing game, and play that first. Something that's more contained and isolated, and be like, oh, you enjoyed this, so now we can add another little element and another little element.
My suggestion would be to trick them. I'm gonna trick you into liking this.
Yes, the healthy suggestion.
Oh, well, it's Valentine's Day. We're gonna go out and we're gonna have some fun. We're gonna go to a B&B and Airbnb or whatever, and you go there and it's just you with the table set up and the dice and stuff. She goes, I thought we were going to an Airbnb. I'm like, no, Air D&D. D&D. You've already agreed. Here's your signature. But no, really, I wouldn't do that.
Something tells me that tricking one's spouse if they seem reluctant is probably not the best idea.
Have you ever been tricked into playing a board game that you didn't want to play? I've been tricked into playing like Jackbox before, but I'm very vocal against hating those Jackbox games.
I don't think I've ever been tricked into playing games I don't want to play. I've taken part in games that I don't want to play before, because, if everyone's like, we all want to play this thing, it's either you play the thing or you sit in the corner being like, no, I hate it. No. I'm not playing.
That's me. You do a really good impersonation of me. I once tricked a guy into co-hosting a podcast with me.
I know. It's... who would fall for something like that? I mean, seriously. But no, I think that one way to do it is pick a board game. So something self-contained, but that has elements of D&D in it. So I can't immediately think of a board game off the top of my head, but it could be any kind of game. So there's a card game called Dungeon Mayhem. It's a D&D card game, has 4 different classes, you fight each other. It's very little actual D&D in it, but it's got just a little sprinkle of D&D in there. And I would say pick games like that, start with games like that, and then start moving on to games that introduce more and more elements until you end up getting to the point where you're like, right, okay, we already played this game, so how about we play an actual game of D&D? Because it's really quite like this, except we don't have to be constrained by what's in that box. We can use our imaginations.
Well, now you're talking about weaning somebody onto D&D like you're weaning somebody off heroin.
Yes, that's exactly... I think that comparison is exactly accurate, and it's perfect.
But here's the question, like, why, from an outsider, from someone that hasn't played D&D before and is reluctant, let's try and empathize here. There are a few reasons why someone might not be interested in playing D&D. Mm-hmm. Like, from the outside, it's a pretty abstract and obtuse game.
Yes.
Dog, what are you saying we have to imagine all this stuff? Oh, you roll dice for everything? Oh, great. Yeah, I've played Yahtzee before. Oh, you don't use the square dice. You use these demon dice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so so what are the rules? Oh, there are rules, but you can break them if you want. And nobody knows all the rules. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
And you want me to jump in there and pretend and act. Okay, yeah, cool.
Explaining high-level D&D to someone who's got absolutely no idea what it is an incredibly difficult task. I watched a clip recently of the James Corden show where a guest on there was talking about his D&D campaign, and he described it as him and his friends getting together and playing out their own story akin to Lord of the Rings that exists in their imagination that they did over the course of like 3 years. And he was like, trying to explain that to someone else is incredibly difficult because they weren't there. They didn't experience the things you experienced. They don't care about Falcor slaying the Medusa, So leading with those kind of stories very often kind of turns people off, and instead focusing on the kind of positive aspects to just people in general might be more beneficial. So, you get to spend time with your friends, you get to make stories with your friends, and you don't have to go super in depth on being like, here are the kind of stories we get to tell.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I like D&D. I have a YouTube channel about it. What you just described sounds really boring. It sounds like it's... you get to hang out with your friends. It's like collaborative storytelling. Oh my God. No.
Have you ever introduced anyone to D&D?
I have, but they've all wanted to be introduced. I've never I did have somebody that I asked to play D&D.
Yeah.
And he said yes because he was too polite to say no. And he said, I'm expecting to leave after the first one, but he had fun. He also became my most problematic player I've ever had, but that's a different story. But I think D&D just sounds kind of crap, and even like the representations in media. You go, no, you've seen it on the IT Crowd, and you've seen it on Community, and you've seen it on probably on Stranger Things.
Yeah.
None of that like paints it in a good light.
No,
it's always like super awkward.
I think one of the problems with kind of media representation of D&D is that it always kind of focuses on the players. And like, if you think of Stranger Things, you see the kids sitting around the table and it focuses on the kids. I think that maybe it would be more successful if it cut and there was like an in-universe story focusing on what was actually happening in the story of the game, and then cut from that out to the player level. So you start with the most exciting and engaging thing, which is the story and the events that are happening, and then pull back to be like, look, people are playing this and you can too.
So you want to Jumanji them?
That's exactly what I want to do. Yes. 100%.
Okay.
Yes.
Maybe when this person's wife is saying, I don't feel like I'm creative enough to play D&D, or I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that, what they're actually saying is no.
Yeah.
And this person's just not listening. Like, if I go, hey, Anto, we're going to have such a good party. You got to come. It's going to be so good. Gary's going to be there. Ranger's going to be there. You're going to love it. Come on down. And you go, oh, no, I'm busy. I'm busy that night. I'm, I don't know, slapping myself.
Mm-hmm.
I would, I don't think you're actually slapping yourself. I think that, well, what excuse would you give? What's your go-to excuse?
My go-to excuse is I really don't feel up to being around a whole bunch of people. I want to sit at home and eat pizza.
Oh, okay. And if you say that, what you mean is, no, don't invite me to that.
I'm usually pretty straight up. If I don't want to go to a social event, I'll be like, I don't want to come to this.
I think my go-to excuse is to invite me to something. Invite me to something?
Would you like to come swimming with me and my dog?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. That's what you got to do. You just got to...
It's such a disarming no.
You hit them with the rhythm of the wouldn't have thought so, and it leads into another sentence, and then you can just go... So invite me again.
Hey, Matt, would you like to come swimming with my dog and I?
No, I wouldn't have thought so. Have you heard of this podcast called No Plan, No Problem? Like, and you're just onto something else, and you've kind of disarmed them. You've taken away their weapon, and then you've also tripped them. They're off balance now, okay? And now you're in control, and now you can invite them to something. You come swimming with my dog.
Even though this is a make-believe situation, I feel so hurt and upset.
Okay, I'm just blocking Anto on all social media. Going back to this specific question of this person's wife, presuming that you've Jumanji'd them and you've explained it in the Jumanji fashion in a very good way, and they understand what D&D is, and at that point they're still saying no, they don't want to, that's fine.
Yeah.
Dude, there's plenty of stuff that I've never tried that I might like that I will still say no to. I think I would love skiing. I'm never going to do it. I'm 33 years old. I like my knees.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. And I think that it's okay to not like something. And it's okay to go, oh, you're really into, wiffle batting. And that's a really important hobby of yours. But I have...
Hey, Andrew, do you want to come to my wiffle batting club?
I regret all my life choices. You are really into wiffle batting, and you invite your partner or a friend to come wiffle batting with you, and they have absolutely no interest in that, and it sounds like the worst thing they've ever heard. It's okay to say, no thank you, I appreciate the invite, but no. So one thing I noticed about this question is that the Sneaky Link said that their wife says she's not creative enough to be in a group. And I think that is something that probably bears talking about, because that is probably something that puts a lot of people off trying D&D. They probably feel like they aren't creative enough to make believe all of these things.
Yeah, that's totally fair enough. People get really scared of creativity in general because it's one of the words, a buzzword that's used to describe children's abilities.
Yes.
You're either good at math or you're creative or you're good at sport.
Yeah.
And you're always one of those. And these are just kind of the stories that we tell about ourselves that aren't true. They're just the words that people use to describe us when we were kids. They don't apply to adults. You can do whatever you want.
I think in a broader sense as well, so much of what we do in general becomes kind of competition, and you need to be good at something. So when someone says I'm not creative enough, sometimes it might be that they actually worry that that they have creative ideas, or that they would like to try this thing, but that the other people at the table are going to laugh at them and going to judge them for not being good enough at D&D.
Yeah, that's a really good point, especially because there's something so performative about doing this in public. You, by design, you pretty much can't play D&D solo. You know, and even if you did play it solo, you wouldn't get the juice, because the juice is seeing your ideas reflected in the ideas of other people and making this kind of hit the resonant frequencies of your own imaginations, and it just kind of vibrates, and it's super good. But you don't need to be good at stuff anyway. Like, I've been playing guitar for 20 years. I'm bad at guitar. I still like it. You know what I mean? You know, I'm not competitively trying to get better. No. I suck at it. I just like doing it.
Yeah, I think that people in general, as a broader sense, could do with being more okay with failure, in air quotes, because failure in this context, in playing D&D and the creativity surrounding it, even if you fail, you're still probably going to be having fun telling stories with your friends and rolling dice. You know, I know that I've spoken to players, I've had players in my game that are completely okay playing online, but once we move into the real world and all sit around the table, they kind of pull back a bit because they can now be seen, and the being seen presents kind of a block to them. They're happy to try things and, you know, be silly when they can't be seen, but as soon as we're at the table, that kind of reins back. And if I were to suggest us playing in a game store in public, then some of those players would be like, no, thank you. Yeah.
I think that speaks to a lot of fear. The antidote to fear is trust.
Yeah.
If you can go, if someone goes, I'm afraid of this, or if I go, I'm really afraid of this. For example, I'm scared of cars in general. Like, I hate being in busy traffic. I hate crossing the road and jaywalking in crazy situations. But whenever I'm in the car with someone that I trust, I'm not scared anymore.
Yeah.
And it's not like, I'm not saying that I'm paralyzed by fear or anything. I'm just saying that I'm like, okay, I'm looking around for the vehicle that will kill me.
Yeah. I think that as Dungeon Masters, part of our responsibility, I suppose, is creating that environment where we mitigate as much of that fear as possible. So for Sneaky Links and their wife, it would be up to Sneaky Links to kind of create a situation where their wife feels safe enough expressing that creativity that I believe that everybody does have, in a way free of judgment.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. That's super nice. I actually kind of forgot what we were doing. I just fell down this rabbit hole having a nice time. I guess, like, hey, can I just think of this? A gradual way to ease somebody into D&D would be, if they specifically have fear about it, would be to say, oh, let's just play a solo session, just you and me.
Yeah.
And you make it fun. Or it might be, no, you don't have to join my group with all these other men, you know, because it's typically a male space. If I was joining a group and it was all girls or something, if I was joining, what's a typically female-dominated thing, like ballet? If I was joining a ballet class, I would personally feel kind of like anxious about it if it was all women as opposed to if it was all men, you know, because that would kind of, I know it's stupid, but gender normalizes some things sometimes. So if you're asking your wife to join a completely male group, be like, just symbolically wise, you'd go, ooh, I don't feel welcome here. Look, this is a boys' club. All the boys are here in the club for the boys.
Yeah, I think that kind of that offering of saying, how about I run a game for you and your friends? Is a really good tactic. Being like, you choose some people that you think would be interested and that you trust and enjoy their company, and I will run a session for you all and introduce you all to D&D, rather than it just being the focus on you. It can be this group thing that you and your friends get to experience together, and I am facilitating that for you.
That's a really brilliant sentiment. I love that so much. However, I still want the tip to be, hey, maybe she said no.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is probably the best tip is sometimes it will be a no, and listen for the no.
Yeah, take no for an answer. Oh, hey, this is Valentine's Day, and now it's over. We've done a Valentine's Day podcast. Anto, I'm going to ask you now to wrap up these Valentine's Day gifts/tips, please.
Okay, so tip number 1 was decide whether you want to play into the theme of a holiday or whether you want to subvert the theme of a holiday.
Okay.
Tip number 2 was to use one-shots to build out your world lore.
Love it.
And tip number 3 was take no for an answer.
No. Hey, that was really cool. That was super fun, man. That was really good.
It was.
Hey, my name has been Matthew Perkins. You can find my stuff over at matthewperkins.net.
And my name is Anto, and you can find my stuff across the internet at icarus-games.co.uk.
If you're enjoying No Plan, No Problem, don't forget to subscribe on all the platforms and check out our Patreon for some behind-the-scenes content. Thanks so much for listening. The song playing us out is called All Together by a band called House Hats. Goodbye, no plan, no problem.
I'm alright. Hey, we're alright. All together, alright.